Today is a very, very exciting day because I am actually announcing the release of my first ever knitting pattern. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video with me, Rachel. This is my channel by Rachel Beam, where I share everything to do with living a handmade, homegrown and slow life. Today is a very, very exciting day because I am actually announcing the release of my first ever knitting pattern. Now guys, I am going to attach this microphone at some point to my jumper, but I didn't want to do it straight away because I wanted you guys to be able to see the jumper. This is the Amy March sweater. This is a design that I came up with quite a while ago, and we'll go into that in a bit, but I have named it the Amy March sweater after Amy March, who is a character from Little Women, which is one of my absolute favourite books. I really, really love that book. It's become very dear to me in the last 10 years, especially since I became a Christian, because it is a very Christian book. They talk a lot about faith and how they sort of live out their faith, which I really, really love. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the book, and I'm a big fan of the character Amy. I have always felt quite connected to the character of Amy because I am actually one of four. There's 3 girls and 1 boy. I'm number 3 in my family, and I always thought that actually I was a lot like Amy as the youngest girl in the family. Amy is a little bit vain and she does some really naughty things, and she's quite governed by her passions and her emotions, and she spends all of her time trying to, in the beginning of the book, she wants to be sort of like pretty and fit in with people and stuff, but then she grows hugely as a character throughout the book. So I always felt a bit of sort of kinship with her because I've always loved like pretty feminine clothing and girly stuff and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I really love her as a character. She's really good fun. So now let's have a little chat about the sweater. So some of you guys may recognize this jumper because it is very similar to my red jumper that I designed for Kirsty's Handmade Christmas. So if you guys don't know, I was on a TV program in the UK back in 2022. I was on Kirsty's Handmade Christmas, which is a Christmas crafting competition, and each week there's a different craft, and each day, there's a different craft. It's on every day for 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, or it was back in 2022. And mine was the Christmas jumper competition, where you had to design and knit up a Christmas jumper, and then on TV you had a timed knitting challenge to knit something that matched with your Christmas jumper. And so I designed this jumper, which I'll pop up a picture for you, which, as you can see, is obviously very, very similar. And for a long time I thought about creating a pattern for this, and then I was put in touch with a magazine, and it was released by the magazine last Christmas as a knitting pattern, which is very exciting, in that sort of yarn. Now, when I first started designing this sweater for Kirsty's Handmade Christmas, I was really inspired by the sort of frilly Edwardian blouses. I wanted something that felt like not your usual Christmas jumper, something that felt sort of like elegant, that you could wear out to a Christmas party. And I wanted something that felt like a sort of like blouse, something that you could wear on Christmas Day and feel really special, but also really comfortable and cozy and warm. So that was the idea behind the jumper. And as I say, I was very inspired by that kind of Edwardian, like frilly, like high-necked blouses, lace panels, ruffles, frills, things like that. How could I sort of interpret that into knitwear? And my initial plan had been to do something a lot more toned down, similar to what I'm wearing now, in a lovely white. So it would have that sort of lovely, like fresh white, maybe holding a stellina mohair. So it had a bit of sparkle to it, but sort of quite subtle. And the producers on the TV show said that they wanted me to go bigger, they wanted it to be brighter and more exciting. And so I ended up going for a sparkly red yarn, which is really good fun. I do really like the jumper that I created, and I wear it a lot. You will have seen, if you watch my Vlogmas, that I wore it a lot over Vlogmas. It's a great throw-on jumper. But it is made in an acrylic yarn with the sparkle in it, which I'm not a huge fan of now. I try very hard not to buy acrylic fabrics or acrylic yarns, just from a sustainability point of view. So I much prefer natural fibres. And it's also quite like flamboyant because it has these ginormous ruffles down the front as well as the ruffles on the sleeve. And so, yeah, when I came to sort of like thinking about pulling together a pattern, my first ever garment pattern, which is something I've wanted to do for a really long time. A few people had asked me for that pattern, and obviously it ended up in the magazine, but people were still asking because you can, I think, purchase a copy of the magazine and it will tell you how to knit it in that acrylic yarn, in that gauge. Which is great, but I really wanted to have a go at knitting it in a more subtle colour, in a more subtle way, missing out the ruffles at the front perhaps, and just changing up the pattern a bit. I changed the gauge slightly. I used, natural fibre yarn, and I am just so pleased with how it came out. I'm actually just going to attach this now because I've realised that I'm sort of holding it up. So let me just pop it here. Yeah, I hope the sound is okay for you guys. This is very new to me, using a microphone, and some of you gave me some really great feedback in my last video that I had actually pressed the wrong setting, so it was only coming through one of your headphones. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. But yes, I'm so pleased with how this came out. And as I say, as I was knitting it, it was really reminding me of that kind of Edwardian time period. Now, I know obviously Little Women is a bit earlier than the Edwardian time, it's more early Victorian time, but it still reminded me of that kind of like frilly, lacy, very feminine kind of style. And as I was knitting it, I just thought, you know what, this really reminds me of something that like a modern day Amy March would wear, that if she was here today painting, sketching in the forest, and she wanted to look pretty and cute, she would wear a jumper like this. So that was sort of the thoughts behind it as I started to create this and make it in the white. And I hope you guys agree that, you've seen the photo of the red one, that it works really well in the white. I wanted something that was so much more wearable, because obviously sparkly red, great for Christmas, but you can't wear it any rest of the time of the year. And I wanted something a bit more subtle. And as I say, I'm really pleased with how it came out. So let's talk a little bit about the construction now. So this is actually knit flat and seamed. I am a big fan of flat knitting. That's how I learned to knit. It doesn't bother me at all. I know a lot of people really don't like seaming, that they you know, like it's almost a bit of a cult thing to knit in the round. And that's absolutely fine. But I do find it to be a little bit, sometimes people can be a bit harsh about flat patterns. So I'm hoping that people will still respond well to it. At the end of the day, if you're a good knitter, you could probably work out how to knit it in the round and then just split for the sleeves. And there's so many patterns like that that are like in the round and they start at the bottom and then they split at the armpits and then you're just knitting flat for the rest of it. And you know, like obviously cardigans as well, there's no seaming if you get that kind of pattern, but it's the same kind of thing. Anyway, let's not get into an argument about flat and round. I do both and I love both and I find both really enjoyable to knit, so it doesn't bother me in any way. But when I was designing this, I decided to go with flat because I just found that an easier construction for my first ever knitting pattern. Personally, I find it easier to design flat patterns, and as I say, I quite enjoy the hand sewing. So it is knit flat from the bottom up, so you do the back first and you basically knit pretty much, it's a rib and then stocking net stitch, and then you create the stitch for attaching the ruffle across the shoulders, and then you do the front with this lovely lace panel. This looks a little bit complicated and I would say that the pattern is probably more of a sort of intermediate knitting pattern. It's definitely not beginner. If you're a confident advanced beginner, definitely give it a go, especially if you're somebody that really enjoys lace work and bobbles and texture and you find that something quite easy. But yeah, I'd probably say it's more of an intermediate because of the lace panel down the front and because of attaching the ruffles. But this is actually from a vintage pattern, and some of you will know if you've watched me for a while or you follow me on Instagram, I have created an entire cardigan with this stitch design on, which I hope to develop into a pattern perhaps this year if I get chance. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a really cute design. It's really pretty. It works really well. So you then knit that, and then you again, when you get to the armpit shaping, you create stitches to attach the ruffles. Now I don't want to say too much about the pattern because obviously you're not supposed to like give away exactly how the construction works or something. You can obviously see that if you buy the pattern. The sleeves are very simple stocking net stitch, but they are a lovely sort of like gathered puff sleeve at the cuff. This is a very simple, easy sleeve to do, and then you just sew it in. But yeah, I really love the shape of them. I really love how it came out. The yarn that I used was gifted. So I just want to say that it was gifted by Mode Rowan, who I've worked with many times over the last 5 years. So thank you very much to Mode Rowan. It's very kind of you. This is their new yarn that they launched in September. This is alpaca wool. So it's 50% alpaca and 50% wool. That works really, really well for this pattern because it's got a lovely drape to it thanks to the soft fibres of the alpaca. So the ruffles drape really nicely, but it's also got a bit of structure to it thanks to the wool, so that the lace panel sits really, really well. So I'm so pleased with how this came out. I've worn it a few times since I finished it, and it hasn't sort of pilled too much or lost too much structure or lost too much shape, which was sort of the main thing. I really didn't want to use something like merino that often stretches a lot and changes shape. I wanted to use something that would keep its shape, because it is also, which I'm going to stand up, it is also a cropped length. So obviously I'm just going to step back, there we go. Obviously you want it to sit nicely and it goes in slightly, so you add some more stitches in after the ribbing for the body to get that shape. But yes, it is cropped here, which I love, because you guys will know if you've been following me for a while, I'm a dress wearer. I wear dresses all the time, so nearly all my knits are cropped, my cardigans and my jumpers, because they're worn over the top of dresses. So of course that was going to be the style, and it goes with, quite obviously being this colour, it goes with quite a few of my dresses in my wardrobe. So I am really pleased with how it came out. Right guys, I'm just going to take this microphone off because it's just not sitting very well on the neckline, and I don't want to stretch out the neckline too much. So the neckline is quite a small neckline because I wanted it to be quite delicate, because again it was that kind of vintage blouse feel to it. So that's what I decided to do. So it's quite a small neckline, And yeah, that's basically all I have to tell you about the construction and the style of it, the yarn that I used. The Mode Rowan yarn is a really beautiful yarn, and it comes in 10 shades at the moment, but they are intending to grow the shade range. So it's very possible that in the next few months there will be more shades to choose from, but it's knit with a 22 stitch 30 row gauge on both the lace panel and the stocking net stitch. So as long as you can get gauge, you could use any yarn, but I do highly recommend using like a wool or an alpaca wool mix. I'm really excited to see people's different versions because I feel like it could look so different in different colours. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that. If you would like to purchase a copy of the pattern, it is available on Ravelry, which I will link below. At the moment, it is just available on Ravelry. I'm not releasing it anywhere else. However, I do have plans to reinstate my website, which I used to have a few years ago, ready for the launch of my book in September. So I might pop the pattern on there. I might create a shop on there when I relaunch it, and I will let you guys know when that happens. If you have any questions, please do let me know. You can let me know in the comments below. There will also be obviously pattern support as well for the pattern. There'll be an email address and things like that if you decide to make it. Let me know if you guys are excited to make this, if you're going to buy a copy. I'd really love to hear your thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed the sort of beautiful shots at the beginning as well of us going around the woods and showing off this lovely jumper design. I'm very excited to be releasing my first ever knitting pattern design, and I hope that in the future there will be many, many more. So if you'd like to see more designs from me, make sure you do support this release, because that will allow me to do some more in the future. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I know that this video is a bit odd because it's a Friday and it would normally always come out on a Monday. And so there will not be a video on Monday. This is sort of Monday's video, but a few days early to coincide with the release of the knitting pattern. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. And thanks so much for always supporting my new ventures and things like that. If you want to see some more sort of versions of, if you want to see some more pictures and things like that, pop on over to my Instagram and have a look there, where I'm going to be sharing. I've already shared some photos obviously with the pattern release, but I will also be sharing some videos and bits and bobs on there over the next few weeks of the pattern. So yeah, thanks guys, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye.